Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Layla, and today we are doing a subscriber financial review. I had some fun with this one, actually. There's quite a few options for this individual, but before we get into her email and the options that I came up with, I have a few things that I always like to say at the beginning of these videos. The first thing is that if you're interested in me making a video about your financial situation, a video very similar to this, it will be anonymous. You can feel free to share your financial situation with me at my email that is down below, and there's also a list of things for you to include in your email that would be really helpful for me to give you the best suggestions. Second thing, if you want to take things a little bit further, I also offer one-on-one sessions so we can work together to come up with a debt plan. I will help you to budget, help you to save, and most importantly, hold you accountable to all of those financial plans and goals. My website is linked down below. You can see my offerings there. And the third thing is that if you are going to comment on this video, please be kind. I am all for people leaving their feedback and suggestions for this individual, but please keep in mind that this is a real human being and they will likely read those comments, so please be helpful but kind. So I'm going to start by reading this email to y'all. And one thing I do want to say before I start going through this is that she sent me this email at the beginning of September, and then I followed up just like literally this morning and asked a question, and she followed up with a few updates. So I'm going to try my best to keep it organized and give y'all those updates as I go through everything. All right, so she said, I am 27 years old, female, living in Minneapolis. Just graduated from nursing school in May and started my job in July. And my BSN is my second bachelor's degree. I took out loans both times for both degrees, and now I have a total of about $62,000 of student loans and one additional loan. I paid off my car in 2019 and plan to drive it till it falls apart. I have no credit card debt and use credit cards for points and cash back, but pay the balance off every month. Love that right off the bat. I'm so glad you don't have the car debt or the credit card debt. If you can get into a pattern of using your credit card just for the points, it is a beautiful system, and yeah, that's ideally where everybody can get to. So huge congrats on graduating and also for not having any consumer debt. Here's where it gets complicated. I am currently living at home with my family. I moved back after school and there has been a lot going on lately, so I'm ready to move out again and be on my own. I plan to move out around November/December. Rent where I'm looking tends to be around $1,500 a month, with parking of $200 and utilities around $100 to $150. Right now I am not paying rent, but the expenses above will start in November if I move out. I want to move, like really badly, and I am looking at apartments already. But my question is, do you recommend staying at home and paying off debt before moving? Is there any way I can continue to make additional debt payments if I do move out without working myself to death? I currently have $7,000 in Marcus as my emergency fund and $2,000 in a Roth IRA that I had rolled over from an old job. I also started a new retirement account with my new employer, and there is not much in there. Now, quick little update on that. So she did mention that her emergency fund is now at $8,600 and her goal emergency fund amount is $10,500, but we'll talk about that. Also, with my employer, I am eligible for the public student loan forgiveness after 120 qualifying payments. So I applied for that, and they are moving my loans around and determining what my monthly payments will be. Is it smart to do this program and make the minimums for 10 years or just pay it off sooner? My last job was also an eligible employer, so I have about 3 years of payments already, so just about 7 years left. We will talk about that. Then she gave me a list of her numbers, including her income and like a rough budget. So first of all, her income, her net income, $3,400 from my full-time job. However, in her update, she mentioned that she got a small raise at work, so my monthly take-home is more like $3,500 now. And then the other income that she makes is from DoorDash. So she drives for DoorDash and earns about $100 to $250 every week. She did mention here that because she drives for DoorDash, this is why her gas bill is so high. She fills up at least 2 times a week, and she's been doing this for the past 2 months to save up her emergency fund to what it is now. So that's really great. I'm glad you were able to pick up something, earn some income on the side, because that has clearly really helped to build up your emergency fund. Now I'm gonna pop up the things that she sent me, her monthly expenses. This is obviously what she currently pays. So rent and utilities, 0, groceries, 200, but this would go up to 400 when she moves out. Food out is 200, lots of Starbucks and lunches at work. She did mention in her update that she has been working on that. She's cutting back on Starbucks runs and making matcha at home more. So that's good. She didn't give me an updated food out budget, but we will talk about that like in when I go to my spreadsheet, we'll look into that. Phone bill 45, gas 300, which we already addressed why that's so high. Car insurance is at 75, Netflix, Spotify, Kindle Unlimited. She put this in here that she loves to read, and I am getting back into reading for fun after school, so I have to have this for my sanity. Definitely something I can relate to. I prefer physical books, as y'all can see. I love reading, obsessed with it. I love collecting books, so when I'm not doing a no spend year, I spend a lot of money on books, so I completely understand that. However, in her update, she said, I canceled my Kindle Unlimited membership and downloaded a bunch of free books that will keep me busy for a while. So that's good, and I'm sure she'll eventually get it back, just because when we are readers, we read books and we're going to finish the book, so we have to get more. Hair, $300 once every 3 months or so. I plan to get my hair braided for about $300. And she said I can cut this expense out. However, I'm going to keep it in her budget as like $100 per month, because if she's doing her hair every 3 months or so, then that averages out to $100 per month throughout the whole year. She did list her savings here as well. This is actually what she puts to her savings. So emergency fund, $250 per month, Roth IRA, $25. You'll see on here that there is a loan for $2,000. We're going to ignore that because she had mentioned there was an additional loan that she had to pay back, but that's already done. In her email update, she mentioned that she started doing a bunch of extra DoorDash runs and was able to completely pay that off. So that is done, which is great because we're going into a new month, and so we can set up a fresh budget for her and plan. Now I'm going to read to you what she sent me about her debt. It's a little bit confusing, so this isn't going to be perfect. It never is, but we're going to try our best to work with this situation as far as my spreadsheets go, but let me read this first. Since I have multiple loans, some from 2016 and some from as recent as 2023, I still have some in deferment until December. My minimum payments right now are $51.50 for Mohila, $23.30 for Nelnet. The balance still needs to be transferred. And then $105 for Sally Mae. And then these are the balances. So for Mohila, she owes $52,709. The highest interest rate is 4.99, so obviously there's multiple loans under that, but we're just going to call it 4.99. The minimum payments are the $51.50 until December, when it will go up again. She's on the SAVE plan, but not sure the exact payments for when the school deferment ends. With Nelnet, that balance is about $2,136. The interest rate is 4.29%. There was a discrepancy when transferring over to Mohila, which is why my last balance was off. This loan will be transferred at some point, but I still need to keep making the payments to Nelnet until then. And then finally, Sally Mae, $8,003. Interest rate is 11.625%, and the minimum payment on that was the $105. Okay, and then final little bit here from her email update. I have not signed a lease yet, but I found an apartment I love and came very close to signing on. It is in the location I want, but I know rent is expensive, and with parking and utilities, my housing costs will be way above the recommended amount for my income. I just feel like I would be making a huge financial mistake to move now with so much student loans, and that I should suck it up and stay for a couple years to pay them off. However, I miss that feeling of independence and freedom I had when I moved out of my mom's house in the past, and I don't know how much longer it would take to pay off my loans if I stay at home versus if I move out. I turned 28 in December, and I know age doesn't matter, but I feel like that's a great time to move out. I would love to start investing more. My company has a great retirement plan. It's a pension. I contribute 6.5%. They match 7.5%. I also want to eventually max out my Roth IRA every year at a minimum. And she put, finances stress me out with a smiley face. Yes, finances with debt, finances overall stress many people out, and you will get to a point once you get out of debt and get yourself into a better financial situation, you won't feel that stress. Yeah, I mean, speaking from experience, I feel like these days I do think about finances frequently, but they don't stress me out. There is quite a bit to unwrap here, so I'm just going to kind of go with the flow. Going back quickly to your employer's retirement plan, you mentioned that they match 7.5%, but you're contributing 6.5%. Personally, I would suggest to you to just bump it up that 1% and take that full match. Like, that is free money. You have a decent amount saved up for your emergency fund, so I think you are safe to go ahead and do that. Now, I want to talk about the public student loan forgiveness program. And any of y'all who are currently enrolled in this or who have received this benefit, please comment down below with your opinions on that, because personally, I don't know too much about it. Like, I know at one point that this forgiveness program was not really reliable. Like, there were a lot of problems with it and people were making payments, but they didn't properly qualify. So after they made payments for 10 years, they ended up not getting their student loan debt canceled. And then since they were paying a smaller amount, their interest grew so much and they basically didn't make any progress on their student loan debt. Now, from my understanding, that has been improved pretty significantly, or at least I hope so. So I think it is a good program. So this is where I need y'all, whoever's in it or who has experience with it, please comment down below. But I think it's a good option and just a personal preference at this point. So this is one big area where, you know, you have to make the decision. I can't make that for you. I can't make any of these decisions, but y'all know what I mean. So I would ask, are you, one, okay with being in debt for another 7 years? So you're gonna have the student loan debt for at least 7 more years because you need to make 7 more years of payments until everything gets wiped out. This is only the federal loans, by the way, so we'll talk about the Sallie Mae loan in just a moment. The second thing to consider around this is whether or not you're going to stay at your current employer who is, you know, part of this program, or if you do leave this employer, will you likely go to somebody else, another company that is also eligible for this program? So keep that in mind because that's really important. You would have to stay with this company or another one in order to be eligible for this for 7 years. 7 years is kind of a long time. I think it's a long time. So definitely something to think about and just make sure that's something you want to dedicate yourself to. When we go through your numbers on my spreadsheet and compare your options, I will show you what staying at home looks like and putting extra to your debt would be, or what moving out and putting extra to your debt would be. I will say that if you stay with this program, the Public Student Loan Forgiveness Program, I would want you to increase your investments for sure. So definitely get that 7.5% match from your employer, no matter what. But on top of that, you could start maxing out your Roth IRA, even if you moved out. So if you're gonna do the public student loan forgiveness and you're not gonna put extra to your federal student loans, then make sure you're putting whatever extra amount to investing so that you end up in a good financial situation by the time you are debt free. I also want to address the moving out piece because this is a big decision. Obviously, if you stay at home with your mom, then you can save a ton on living expenses and you can put that to your debt or to your investments. That would be like a couple thousand. I'll show you all the numbers in just a bit, but it'll be a couple of thousand per month that you can put to those things. And then of course, on the other hand, if you move out, you obviously are going to increase your cost of living from not only your apartment, but also the food that you're purchasing for your groceries. And then you're gonna have less money to put toward your debt and or investments. However, the big thing here is your mental state and your current situation. So I'm going to talk about my story a little bit because I moved out when I was 19. And there are some people who have families that are easy to get along with, or they feel fine staying at home. But then on the other hand, there are people who have parents or families that are a little bit tougher to be around, or for some people it can be like completely toxic, or they don't even have that option, you know, like you got to get out by 18 or it's just not a good situation, you know? And so that is, I'm going to assume for your situation, it's like tolerable, but you're like, okay, this is annoying. I'm ready to go type of situation. But yeah, I know for myself, I was in a place where I needed to get out, you know, and I am happy with that decision. I was happy to move out. At the time I lived with my sister. We lived together for several years. And then eventually I moved out on my own. I felt at that point it was the right thing to do as well. Like it was how I was feeling, and that was what I needed to do for myself. I remember before I moved out to live in my apartment on my own, I had wanted to for like a year or so before that. But I was like, that's going to be so much money. That's like half my paycheck because, yeah, it's very expensive. But I was like commuting to work, and it was just kind of stressing me out to have to do that on top of everything. But then eventually it got to a point where I just like was kind of forced into it. Like I was forced to make that decision. And at the time, I think I was making like $55,000 a year or so. So a little bit more than she is making. But my rent was fairly high. It's definitely not as high as things these days are, but it was a lot for what I was making. And I also had quite a bit of debt, as y'all know. But because I moved out and I was on my own, like completely on my own, I felt a lot more pressure in a good way to get my shit together. So I was like, that's why I went into like a no spend year the following year, because I was like, I really want to save, get my emergency fund up. It kind of forced me to be much more responsible with my finances, because now I knew I had to get an emergency fund so I would be good if I lost my job or if something came up. I need to be able to pay for my rent. It actually put a lot of pressure on me to find ways to increase my income so that I felt more comfortable, and also put more money to my debt, because it kind of just motivated me to make more progress. So I'm saying that because it may not happen for everybody, but with what you're explaining to me, I feel like that could be what you may experience as well, or anybody who's watching this who's in a similar situation. So would it be smarter to stay at home and save a lot of money or pay off debt, invest, whatever? Yes, it would be. And I can literally say the same for myself. You know, if I had stayed at home, which was an option available to me, I would have saved a lot of money. But was it worth it for me to move out? Yes, both times. Moving out to live with my sister and then moving out to be completely on my own, both times it was worth it, even though it cost me more money in the long run. So I can show you the numbers for everything and see what things may look like in either situation, but ultimately that is a decision that you will have to think about and really get down to how you're currently feeling and what it is that you want to do, like strongly want to do, you know, and if you are willing to sacrifice the savings in order to be on your own. Okay, so finally, let's get to my spreadsheets. All right, we are looking at my debt snowball / debt avalanche tracker. This is available for purchase on my Etsy shop, always linked down below. So of course, for the starting month and the current month, it is September, but really all of these numbers are going to apply for October. Now, per usual, I did list out her debts. So the Sallie Mae, that's her private student loan, and then Mohila and Nelnet, which are federal student loans. I did list these from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. One thing to keep in mind is that her Mohila student loan is broken down into multiple loans with different interest rates, but she told me that the highest interest rate is 4.99, so I just put it at the highest interest rate, so these numbers are not going to be 100% accurate, but this is a good reflection of what to expect. Now, if we look at her debt-free date, if she were to make no extra payments to her student loans, she would be debt-free by August 2038, which is like 15 years from now. Now, as I talked about before, she is part of the student loan forgiveness program for working in the public industry. So as long as everything works out smoothly with that, meaning she stays at her current employer for 7 years or stays at her current employer and then goes to another employer that also can be a part of that program for 7 years, and everything goes well with that plan in general and they actually wipe out her debt, she will actually drop off the Mohila and Nelnet loan completely. So she'll pay a little bit. First of all, she mentioned that her Mohila minimum payment is going to change in December, as well as like Nelnet is in this like weird transition. I think it has to come over to Mohila from my understanding. So over the next few months, this is probably going to be a little bit higher and look a little bit differently, but you're probably going to be making a minimum payment on your student loans of like $100, max, maybe more than that. I don't know really how the program works, so y'all gotta let me know in the comments. I did some quick math, like even if her minimum payments were to go up to 150, so let's say for the next 7 years she has to pay 150 per month, that's still only 16,000, like 16,500 of total payments, and then everything would be wiped out. So that's actually a pretty good deal right there, you know, like I would strongly consider that, because that's a lot of money wiped out, but you're gonna have the debt just hovering in your life for 7 years. And yeah, just definitely something to think about, but that is a huge savings. Instead of you having to pay this, you know, $54,000 or so of student loan debt plus interest, you're gonna pay like probably less than 20,000 over the next 7 years. And now I'm so sorry if I'm repeating myself, but with the forgiveness program, if you decide to do it, you like just stick with it. Like you've got to stick with it, because if you are making these tiny payments on this really large loan, it's gonna grow. Like the interest is going to eat that thing up, and you're gonna end up in a lot more debt than this, because $51 on $51 a month on $52,000 of debt is not going to make it go down whatsoever. So you're probably going to end up with like double that by the time it's just gonna, if you don't stick to the program and it doesn't go smoothly, then you're gonna end up with more than 50,000, I would think, of debt. So just be careful with it. If you decide to do it, stick it all the way through, you know? Now, outside of the Mohila and Nailnet, you have Sallie Mae, and I'm pretty positive that Sallie Mae is not going to be included in the forgiveness, and I want you to prioritize that. I want you to prioritize paying that debt down for sure. One, because it's not that much, it's, you know, $8,000, but the interest rate is pretty high, and I just don't like private student loans in general, like nobody does. So let's hop over to your income, budget, spending, whatever you want to call this. So this specifically is for October, and October only, because we'll talk about the months following. So she told me her income is about $3,500 from DoorDash. She said she makes like 100 to a couple hundred each week, so I went ahead and just did 500. Keep in mind that she does need to put some aside for taxes, but I just put this at 500. So she's working with about 4,000 per month in income. Hopefully over the next few years, you'll see an increase in your income. But all in all, things aren't looking too bad considering you just graduated and you have that really good pension or retirement plan, and potentially wipe out a huge chunk of your debt after several years. I did keep her spending the same on here. I took out the Kindle Unlimited. I kept the budget for her hair in here because it equals out to about 100 per month. And then of course I included her debts. I did add in her emergency fund as well as her Roth IRA. Actually, she mentioned that she contributes to her Roth IRA monthly anyway. Now you'll see on here that I put Sallie Mae at $1,000. So if I were you, in October, I would make your minimum $105 payment to Sallie Mae, and then an additional $895, $1,000 total to that debt. The federal student loan, just pay the minimum. And then your emergency fund, you mentioned it was at $8,600, but you want it to be at $10,500. So you need to just pop $1,900 on there and you'll be done with that emergency fund. I would say whatever you choose to do, that emergency fund is fine. If you choose to stay at home, keep it at $10,500. If you choose to move out, keep it at $10,500. And then once you get to a point where you have more money to work with, you could start increasing it, but $10,500 I think is a good stopping point. So that is what October is looking like. I'm expecting that you will not move out in October, so I think this should be pretty accurate. I would say to prioritize that emergency fund so you can just finish it, as well as Sallie Mae. Next, let's look at November through December. Everything is about the same here. Now, if you do decide to move out, I honestly suggest waiting at least until January, the winter months, because you'll probably get a better deal. I moved in February, and I know that I got a lower rate compared to what things are a few months later, like in the summer months. So yeah, I think it would be good just like spend the holiday with your family, and then into the new year you can move out. This also will allow you to save up a little bit so that you don't have to like cash flow your security deposit, and usually you have to pay like first month's rent or last month's rent or half the rent, whatever the case may be. So this will allow you to save up a little bit, or if you needed to like purchase some things for your home, like new kitchen stuff or furniture type of thing. So I think if you do plan on moving out, wait until January. So that's what I'm going to act like you're going to do. You're going to listen and wait until then and not move in November. So then you have time to save $2,000, $1,000 in November and $1,000 in December for that move. And then this allows you to put a really large chunk to your Sallie Mae student loan debt and make a lot of progress on that so you can get that paid off faster. And we are going to go back to the debt avalanche tracker. Just bear with me. I want to go through these numbers first. So now let's look at 2024, your spending for 2024, if you were to get an apartment, okay? So I'm going to keep your income the same. You're working with $4,000. And I did, down at the bottom, I logged what you would have. So you'd have your $10,500 in your emergency fund, probably a little bit more because of interest. And then you have your $2,000 in your apartment savings. Obviously, by that point, you may spend some of it, but just wanted to call that out. Now, obviously, since you're on your own now, we have to start paying for rent and utilities. So I put that at $1,850. I don't know if that's right. I just kind of went with a higher number because it seems like what you're looking at is pretty expensive. So hopefully that would be the max. You did mention that groceries on your own would be about $400 per month, so I bumped that up. And then you can see that I highlighted food out because I think that's an area that you should lower. So before she was spending $200 per month or so, but I think you can lower this to $150 max, ideally less than that. I know she did mention that she's been working on that, so it's probably lower for October through December, but just something to call out. Once you do move out on your own, definitely an area to work on. I kept everything else the same, and then I put that for Sallie Mae, you're putting a total of $900 to that. Now, technically, at some point, like a few months into 2024, you would pay off your Sallie Mae, and then you could move on to either putting extra to your student loan debt or putting more to your investments. So, of course, moving out on your own is a huge decision, but so is deciding if you want to do the public service student loan forgiveness program. Because if you do it, then I would say just make the minimum payment. You don't need to make extra for the federal student loan and then put more to investing. But if you want to pay off your debt faster, you could roll this $900 into your federal student loan. So if you decided that you do want to move out and you also want to put extra to your debt so you can pay it off faster, like you're not going to worry about this program, and that means you're not going to be able to invest much, let's look at what that would look like. Of course, I still have your same debts listed here, and I'm going to scroll down to this section because this is where you're making the extra payments. So you're going to do the $895 to the Sallie Mae loan in October, the $1,695 on top of the $105 minimum payment in November and December. And then after that, an extra $795 because a total of $900, but it's already accounting for the $105 minimum payment. So a total of $900 to your debt from basically January 2024 and beyond. Obviously, over the next couple of years, she may increase her income. So I don't know about that, but I dragged this number all the way down until she would pay off all of her debt. And she would be debt-free by October 2029. So that would be 6 years from now, which is interesting because that's very close to the 7 years that you would have for the forgiveness, you know? Now, you would pay off that Sallie Mae loan by April 2024, which is good. So I do want you to prioritize that, but is it worth it to make all of these payments on the student loan debt instead of getting the forgiveness? I don't know. Now let's look at what your budget would look like for 2024 and potentially beyond if you stayed at home. So your rent and utility income is the same. Rent and utilities would be $0. Groceries would stay at $200. I did keep the food out at the $150 because I think it's something you should still work on. And then this is the situation where you would be prioritizing paying down your student loan debt. So you would be putting a total of $2,979.80 to your debt. And this is actually an additional $2,800 on top of your minimum payment. So that's what I'm going to plug into the spreadsheet. Now, this also is not you prioritizing your investments. So the Roth IRA is still at about $25. Same debt listed here. You're going to pay the $895 extra in October, a total of $1,000, and then a total of $1,800 in November, a total of $1,800 in December, and then after that, you're going to be putting an extra $2,800 to your debt until everything is paid off. And with that scenario, you will be debt-free by September 2025, or about 2 years from now. Now, obviously, at this point, you wouldn't qualify for the forgiveness. You would have paid this all on your own, which is amazing, and 2 years is really, really fast. That is 2 years of staying at home, but that also allows you to be more flexible with your future job. Like, let's say the next job that you go to doesn't qualify for the forgiveness, so then you are like, end up stuck in a situation, you know? So yes, this is amazing that you can pay off that amount of debt in 2 years, but this does mean that you will stay at home for 2 years, which is okay. If you're, you think you can stick it out, that is completely fine. This doesn't make room for extra investing, but that is also okay. Like, by the time you pay off all of your debt, you'll be almost 30 years old. You'll still be contributing to your employer's retirement plan, which is good, but you ideally would probably want to be at least, maxing out your Roth IRA in addition to that. But overall, you would be fine. You would be able to catch up, But if you start investing heavily at 30, instead of putting an extra $2,800 to your debt, you can start investing all of that. I do kind of want to look at what your investments would look at. So let's say that you do decide to go with the forgiveness program, but you also decide to move out. You're going to pay off the Sallie Mae, so that's going to be done by April. And let's look at what if you invested $795 per month for the next 6.5 years. So I'm going to say that you're starting with the 2000. We're just going to be looking at basically your Roth IRA, or like your Roth IRA in your brokerage account. So for the next 6.5 years, let's see what that would look like with 6%. You're going to put in $795 at the beginning. Okay, so you'd have $78,000. I'm going to bump this to 7% actually. So by the time your debt is forgiven, you're on your own in your apartment, you would have about $81,000. So I'm really sorry to say that I can't tell you the best decision to make. This is a very personal decision, and there's quite a few things that you need to decide on, If I was in this situation, and let's say I'm just going to think of this as myself and, the way that I thought before moving out. Personally, I would move out. I would wait until January, and I would hope you would at least wait until then as well. I would prioritize that private student loan, get that taken care of, because the interest rate's pretty high and you should be able to knock that out fairly quickly. A big chunk of it this year, but also even if you move out, you can make a lot of progress on that too. So focus on that. As long as everything checks out with the forgiveness program, I think it's pretty solid. Like, that is a lot of money to be forgiven. 7 years is a long time, but is manageable. And if you are comfortable with the job that you're doing and you are confident that either you're going to stay at this job or go into another company that allows for the same thing, like in the public industry, then I would go with that. And instead of putting extra cash to the federal student loans, I would be investing. So then after 7 years, you're going to be about 35 years old. You are going to be completely debt-free, and you're going to have quite a bit invested, and you'll be in a pretty good situation. So yeah, there is so much to think about and just a lot to consider here. I know it can be scary and it is quite intimidating and overwhelming, but I hope that this was helpful and at least allowed you to see how the numbers would work, and maybe that will help you to make your decision. I know I've said it quite a few times throughout this video, but those of you who are in the student loan forgiveness program, please comment down below how that's going for you and what you think of it, or if anybody has experience with this, if you work at a student loan company or something, that would be really helpful. And of course, if you're watching this and you have any other feedback or suggestions for this person, then please comment that down below. Thank you again to this individual for sharing all of this information, and thank you for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one.